Welcome to Three Thoughts On. This is Rafael, and today my guest is Jonah Edwards. Jonah is the general manager and head coach for Magic Gaming, which is the Orlando Magic's official NBA2K League affiliate team. For those of you who don't know, the NBA2K League is a professional esports league featuring the best NBA2K players in the world, and it is the first official esports league operated by a U.S. professional sports league, which in this case, of course, is the NBA. The NBA 2K League tipped off its inaugural season in May of 2018 with 17 teams, each affiliated with an NBA team. Since then, the league has expanded to 25 teams, 22 of which are affiliated with NBA teams. Jonah and Magic Gaming recently relocated to Lake Nona, and we are proud to have them as part of our thriving community. During our conversation, I learned a lot about the positive possibilities of gaming as a career and some of the intricacies of coaching an esports team. On a small side note, I want to apologize in advance since we had some small issues with the sound quality. I had some technical problems with my equipment during the recording, but I tried to clean it up as much as possible via post-production. I believe you will still enjoy this episode, as it was indeed a great conversation with Jonah. And now, Jonah Edwards. Welcome to Three Thoughts On. Today I have Jonah Edwards. Jonah, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Thanks for making the time. I am very interested in this conversation. Of course, we met very briefly the other day here in the office, but I've been looking forward to this conversation because I know I have a lot of questions about what you do, and I know a lot of people do. So before we get started, why don't you give us a quick introduction on who you are and how did you come about doing what you do today?
I don't know how quick that introduction is going to be, but I'm happy to answer that. My name is Jonah Edwards. I'm 28. Actually, I turned 29 tomorrow. And I'm the general manager and head coach of Magic Gaming. Magic Gaming is an esports team representing the Orlando Magic, participating in the NBA2K League, which is the NBA's fourth league, their esports league. That has 25 teams, 22 different NBA properties. That essentially is a competitive NBA 2K roster, if that makes sense. So, as far as how I got into it, to be honest, when I was a kid, 10, 11, 12, 13, I really started picking up NBA 2K and Madden, at a more competitive level. I was really good, had older brothers. So, at that age, my goal was to beat them. And once I did that, it was kind of, let's go online. Let's trash talk. Let's go online. I did that a lot in like middle school, high school. And most people didn't even know I was doing it. But I would travel and go and play and was pretty well known in the NBA 2K space for years and years. And then the NBA 2K League came out in 2018. That Adam Silver and the NBA announced they're going to have an esports initiative. And at the time, what's funny is I had a 2K dedicated Twitter account. I had my socials were all kind of that way. And I was in my senior year of college and it fell into my lap, man. Simple as actually a team reaching out to me and asking me to interview. And then actually at the time I was started with the Dallas Mavericks in that first season and then pivoted to Orlando after that. I should probably say this will be my seventh season.
So you were in it from the very beginning then?
I was actually the first coach ever hired in the NBA 2K League. Believe it or not, man, I was 22 at the time, had no idea what to expect. And yeah, I ironically made the first draft pick ever too. We won the lottery in Dallas, the season one. And so the first pick ever I called in, it was pretty cool. Woj tweeted it. It was awesome.
That is great. So this has been going on for a lot longer than even those people who are aware that there is a esports league that is sanctioned, I guess, and sponsored by the NBA itself, right? That has actually been going on for a good 7 years. Now, tell me a little bit more about that. is every team in the league represented by a digital team or team, if you will?
So there's 30 teams in the NBA, 22 of which have NBA2K league teams. So yeah, we're not quite there. We're getting there day by day. But the other three, there are actually 25 total teams. So there are 3 teams in our league that are representatives of, for example, there's NBL, which is the National Basketball League of Australia. They have their own team in our league. There's the Gen G Tigers, which Gen G is a really prominent brand in the esports space. Like the endemic esports space. They have one of the most competitive League of Legends teams out in Korea and have for the last decade, as well as some Call of Duty and Overwatch teams as well. So they're in our league. And so when this model was initially pitched to NBA teams, it was, hey, let's get all 30 NBA teams and let's get 10 either esports or other sports properties. Like, I think this was at one point, I know this was close. I'm not sure if it'll ever get there, but Bayern Munich had an esports team. I mean, like the idea that like we get a Bundesliga team into the NBA 2K league is a real conversation that's happened. So stuff like that, just like different teams and esports entities across the landscape.
Oh, that's fantastic to hear. So the expectation is that at some point, every team will be represented. And can you elaborate a little bit in the similarities and dissimilarities between the season, the number of games, and how the whole thing works out? People are obviously familiar with the NBA. They're familiar with the whole process of playoffs and so forth, and how long the league is. Can you draw parallels on the electronic side?
Sure, yeah. And we have almost 2 different models that the league has taken over the years. We had our pre-COVID where every single game was played in New York City. We would fly to New York City, play on stage, as crazy as like flying on a Saturday morning, play on Saturday night, fly out Sunday morning. Almost like we're in the NFL. It was interesting. So we're preparing for 1 game a week, and that model obviously changed with COVID. Travel was no longer acceptable, and so we had to find different alternatives. And so everything is most games are remote now. So now how the league works is we're going to get into the details here.
Perfect. Let's do this.
So half of our season is 3v3. The first half is 3v3 gameplay. So think like Rucker Park, pick up games to 21. So the first half of our season is that, and in which most games are remote. If you make it to the finals, the final 8, I believe, of a tournament, you then would fly to Washington, D.C., and you would play in person. Obviously, making a final 8 is not an easy thing to do. There's 25 teams. There's also 7 amateur teams that compete in the 3v3. So there's 32 total teams in a bracket. In which you have to make the final 8 to then fly into DC to play in front of fans and things like that in person. So and then obviously after 3v3 concludes, very similar. 5v5 begins where you have to then make it to the quarterfinal to advance from remote gameplay to in-person gameplay in Washington DC. So that's really what our season looks like. But what most people want to know is like the time of year. It's changed a little bit, and I think they're even trying to push it up more. So this year, our games are going to start basically early March, late February through the end of June. The goal is to start our season next year in November, December time. The goal is to get it more aligned with the NBA schedule. They want to be aligned with the NBA schedule for a number of reasons. One of which is because NBA 2K comes out in September. So peak hours of gameplay exist. The NBA 2K has 2 million daily active users. Most of those people are on in November and December. And if not, it's January when you just get the game for Christmas. I mean, it's like those are the peak hours. So our season existing in June just isn't optimal. And I think that's a big reason that push is happening. And in these tournaments and during our season, so we have a roster of 5 folks. 5, it can be men or women. We've actually had 3 women in our league, believe it or not. But they come and they move to Orlando and they stay here for about 5 months. So they'll live in Lake Nona, work out in Lake Nona, eat in Lake Nona, practice every day in Lake Nona, which is awesome. And they get paid, I believe it's $40,000 salary for that 6-month or so window, on top of the fact that there's $2 million in potential prizing during the course of our season. So we have a guy in our roster that won the 3v3 championship last year. His team, for some reason, decided to trade him here in the offseason. So we were thrilled to acquire him. He made over $200,000 during the 2K League season last year because of how successful he was in his own right as a player. So I think that's the perfect example. Here's a 20-year-old who just plays the game and made $200,000 last year representing an NBA organization. So
that is fantastic to hear. So currently then, if I zoom out and kind of put everything together, the season is not only not aligned with the professional NBA season, but it's also shorter. What are the total games that you guys play between 3v3 and 5v5?
It's a great question. So it kind of does vary based on your success level. So if you make it further in a tournament, you're just going to play more games. Off the top of my head, I want to say we have like 25 scheduled games, but theoretically, you're always going to play more. Every team makes it out of their 3v3 group into the bracket play. You win a round, then you're playing more. It's double elimination as well. So you have a number of opportunities. So hopefully we're playing 50, 60 of them. That's what my goal is we're in every bracket. We're going deep in every one. And I think it's a realistic goal for our group based on our current talent level. But I would say like roughly most teams are going to play about 25, 30 games.
Oh, that's fantastic. So I have a son who is a gamer. He does World of Warcraft, and he's pretty good at it. And one of the things that I've been working on here in Lake Nona with a few other entrepreneurs is the concept of the digital athlete, right? Which is what at least I call your players digital athletes, right? Because they are playing a game. It's through the computer. However, in my mind, a digital athlete can perform better if he or she takes care of themselves in a similar way as an athlete does, meaning their sleep schedule, meaning, what they eat, nutrition, what they eat, what they don't eat, meaning their exercise routine, mindset, et cetera, et cetera. At least that's it. That is the concept that I have in my head, right? Does that resonate with you? Do you guys take it to that level? Can you expand on that, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So what I would say in response to this is first of all, like esports is an intellectual sport. You're competing with your brain as much as anything else. And so absolutely, in the same way that there are not a lot of overweight, out of shape chess players in the world, right? Because they're competing with their brain. Their brain needs to be sharp. If you feel good, you perform better. And that's just a fact of life. So absolutely, that's a huge part of what we do is a focus on training. We actually go to the Lake Nona Performance Club twice a week with the team and work out with a personal trainer. We do yoga called Nestry, which is a neurological training and strengthening program technology that's just awesome that we utilize with the guys, as well as mental skills training, trying to get them to understand sports psychology on a deeper level. All these things are really, really important. As well as, of course, like repetitions to get muscle memory. Of course, all those things are important, right? In every sport that you're or game or whatever you're doing in life. But absolutely, yes, we value I always just call it feel good, play good. And I think, I can like to be able to test that myself. I used to be 320 pounds when I was 20 years old and lost a lot of weight myself. And even during this off season, I decided to go a step further, and I've trained a lot, and I've lost 60 pounds this off season between last year and the start of this season. So it's a huge part of what we do. And Performance Club is a huge part of the LNPC is a huge part of what our program currently is here in Lake Nona. Honestly, it's the core of the reason we came and moved our team to Lake Nona, because we weren't always here. We were up in Maitland for 5 years and decided, we needed to change. And the most interesting part about Lake Nona was Nestry and LNPC training opportunity, and the fact that, man, we can really create a competitive advantage potentially for our guys if we can take this seriously. And I think so far that's something we've really done.
That is so good to hear. Just last week, I was compiling a number of papers on the benefits of exercise for cognitive skills and brain function, right? So it is something that I know I've shared with my kids, that the better care you take of your body, the better care you take of your gut biome, meaning the things that you choose to eat, and the better care you take of your mindset, you perform better at whatever it is that you choose to be doing on a daily basis, whether that's a sports or an esports or just, a regular career. Was that naturally inherent within the league, or is that something that has come to be over time? Because I think there's a stigma out there that gamers are just, they're always sitting around. I mean, there's an infamous episode of South Park, okay, that goes over that, right? That they're all overweight, all drinking soda and Red Bull and whatever. But we know that at least today that's not the case. But has that been something that has been ongoing? And if so, for how long?
It's a great question. Colin Cowherd, I believe, calls esports athletes basement dwelling booger eaters with Cheeto fingers. I believe is a direct quote. So yeah, absolutely. I understand the narrative is that like we eat Cheetos and drink Mountain Dew. And there are still, of course, in every sport, there are still folks. I mean, we see it in the NBA that guys that even though they're supreme elite athletes, they don't take good enough care of their body. It happens. So, but yeah, I think the space has certainly evolved over the last, I want to say decade. And the gaming space in general, I think has evolved more so than just esports into, hey, like this can be a healthy hobby. It doesn't need to be something that we're obsessed sitting at our computer, adding to just screen time every day. Like obviously, everything in moderation in life. But as far as from an esports perspective, it certainly has grown. And I think as much as anything, the mental skills and sports psychology aspect has grown the most, I think. I think understanding the value of those things and how that can help create those healthy habits you make in other aspects of your life. I'll give an example on our team. Though he looks to be an in-shape kid. Our best player, his name is Unguardable. He's been here about a year and a half, almost 2 years now. And when we got Josh, he's 19 and he is a kid. I mean, he eats garbage and eats fast food and that's all he does, and drinks juice and that's it. Right. And so I really think that his approach now, 2 years after being here with the Magic and as much as I don't want to give too much credit to myself, I do think I'm a great influence on him in this, that he understands how important it is to take the rest of his life seriously, and not even just what he's eating and drinking, but sleep schedule and just approach to work ethic and what it takes to be the best of the best in life. It's easy. It's not easy to be the 0.1%, right? But for him, it is. He's an inherently skilled individual. He's one of those guys, 130 IQ natural, right? Just gets it. But to go from top 0.1% to best of the best, that's the leap he has to take. And I think he understands it takes sacrifice in that training and regimen for sure.
So let's expand on that a little bit, right? Because now we've been talking about the training that has to take place and the mental training, the physical training. If you work on your body will respond, including the cognitive part, right? But I've seen your setup over here, which is fascinating, right? Because we're sharing office space here. You guys have practices, right? So you all sit together, right? You're drawing plays. You have a whiteboard. You're setting up plays just like an NBA coach would, and you have, positions and picks and all these different things. How do you take, or maybe this is a wrong question. I'm assuming that this is something that the players have to grow into, because gaming, at least, I'm dating myself here, but when I was a kid and I started doing gaming, there was no concept of a team. Everybody was doing their own thing, right? And maybe you're on one side, but you're still doing your own thing. This is an entirely different endeavor here. You actually have to practice together to perform as a unit. How does that work in the digital world versus in the real world out there, like the professional players?
So what's really interesting about this question is, I think the context of understanding that these guys, most of them, not always the case. We've had a ton of guys that aren't this, but most of them across the league, this is the first time they've operated in a team environment in their life. They've never played team sports growing up. They played games. It's what they did. And so they've been individuals. And so it is an absolutely, you're adapting to, even though it does take a lot of you play as a team to qualify for our league and to get into the league. It still takes a lot to get these guys to understand accepting their role, understanding what it takes for them to be the best of what they're doing, and not just evaluating, hey, I scored 12 today, I want to get to 18 a game. Absolutely. Yeah. So, it's really funny when you look at, like, you're looking at our setup. It looks and feels more like a basketball practice than anyone would ever imagine it does, though. And the way that we are watching film and we're preparing, and I'll go home tonight and I'll watch 2K, competitive 2K, and I'll try to find plays to bring into the room, whether this mostly like sideline plays or quick hitters. And sometimes I'll turn on a basketball game. I'll watch a lot of college basketball, and I'll see something like, dude, we could run that. Like, and I literally write it down and I draw it up, and then I take it to the guys and we run it in a real game in practice every day. So, but yeah, our practice regimen is it's strict. I'll be honest, it's a lot of hours. It's a lot more than people would think. Especially the first month, the guys they relocate to market on Thursday. So February 1st. We will be in there on Friday practicing. That's how it is. And really it's more like 6, 7, 8 hours a day total, of NBA 2K focused training, right? On top of the 2 hours a week of personal training, 2 hours of yoga, 2 hours of mental skills training each week, right? So it's a grind, and that doesn't include the extra work it takes to put in the film at home, the extra hours it takes as a team, the bonding hours that taking the guys out to team dinner to, get the group to, acclimated with each other. So all that is just very real. The team environment. It's really funny because, you wouldn't expect our group to talk about basketball the way that we do, just looking at them. Like, we look like a nerdy group of guys that are just hanging out with headsets on, but we're talking like pretty in-depth ball. Like, if you understand basketball, you could hang out with us and understand our conversation. So, I'm from Indiana, man. All we know is basketball. And so I grew up loving the game of basketball. It's all I did. So I love it. I live for the basketball conversation day to day.
Did you yourself play in your young age?
Yeah. I played all the way up to varsity in high school, and then kind of just pivoted. I really was never, this is how you get into NBA 2Ks. I was never a great athlete. I really wasn't. I worked really hard. I think, looking back, I cared so much, and I had an immense knowledge of the game. My friends that were really good on the team would always tell me, like, I knew more than the coach. But at the time, obviously, you're 18, you're 17, like that isn't necessarily a good thing to hear in your ears. Like, hey, you're better, the game better than our coach does. But on the NBA 2K, I could load up and I could be 6'5" and in shape and freak athlete and all the things that I'll never be. And so, that was the beauty of NBA 2K, is I could translate my knowledge of the game as well as like my just general understanding of game theory. And that I have stick skill from playing against my older brothers for years and years, and it translates straight to NBA 2K and really any video game. But yeah.
Does it help? Do you think it helps the digital athlete if they played basketball before, or does it not matter at all?
I think there is certainly a base level understanding of basketball principles. Not even just like terminology. Of course, that you need that. That's an understood thing there. But I think just there's principles of the game of basketball. So I would say it definitely helps. You have an advantage understanding, how to fake and fade on defense, like step to you and then bait you back to the passing lane. I mean, there's so many nuances in the game of basketball too to understand, and just kind of how to position yourself, how to create gravity on the court, how to space properly. All these things, they're not inherent knowledge. You learn from doing them. You learn from watching a lot of the game, So yes, I would say definitely. And, he's not with us on our team anymore, but we actually had a guy the last 2 years who played D1, was a D1 scholarship basketball player for University of Detroit Mercy, and was, I believe, a starter as a freshman for that group out there. Like, was a great basketball player in his own right, and tore up his knee his senior year of college. And this was his outlet, man. It's like he just translated all the knowledge he had accrued over years and years, and was always a gamer. And so he just translated, and it happened out of nowhere. We had another guy who was a D3 running back this last season, and so he was rushing for touchdowns in November, and then flew into Orlando in February and was dunking from a 7-foot center's perspective out of nowhere. And he's 5'7", 5'6", maybe. Great athlete though, incredible athlete. But yeah, these guys, I think more than the basketball principles that they know from their own sports background, I think it's the work ethic and dedication and understanding of what it takes to be great that really translates to from just sports to esports that I think is lost in translation a lot of times. You have to be nerdy or, just sit at the screen all day. Man, if you have like regimented practice and you're intentional in your approach, you're going to have greater return than you're ever going to have just like load up the game and having fun and just playing nonstop.
Yeah, now you have a purpose, you have a vision, and you have a team, and you're going after it together, right? And you have to rely on each other. So all those principles that come from teamwork or from playing sports as a kid, you're bringing all that to the table, right? So it's not just an individual just playing for fun. This is serious, and you are getting paid. This is a professional. This is a serious endeavor. Let me ask you on the platform side. So, what do the practices look like? You're practicing against, the machine, basically? You're running drills against the machine, or do you have the players play each other?
It's a good question. So it does kind of depend. There are a lot of times we do like internal practice where, it'll be maybe I'm stepping in, maybe my assistant is stepping in. We're doing like 3v3 because we have 5 players. And then obviously, I've played the game at a high level for a long time too, so I'm able to do that or whatnot. But most of the time it's scrimmaging teams, mostly in the other conference. There is like a Western and Eastern conference. And so, for example, we're going to come in and we're going to play against the Kings today, right? Like we're not going to play the Kings all season. So we're able to just practice them all day. And they have a team, and so it's mostly just like scrimmaging other teams. And so you're able to run your offense, in real time repetitions against other professionals and what they do in their own right. So, so a lot of times we'll go in, we'll talk about our day. Hey, we're going to try to work on these 3 things. Let's say, hey, let's get our shooting guard more involved. We really need to get our 3 points a game up. We're not getting enough 3-point looks, right? We're attacking the rim too much. Let's really work on that. Going with some ideas like that. Let's really work on pressuring up the court defensively. Let's push the pace on defense. Let's make them do some things. Then we'll go in, we'll play against the Kings, and we'll try to do that. And then we'll talk about it after and say like, hey, like we'll reevaluate. Like, hey, maybe we bring up a couple clips from the game, watch the film back. Like during a lunch break, I'd be like, hey, you missed him here on this wrap here. The shooting guard was wide open. If you hit him here, like we need this 3 here, dude. Like instead you took it to the rim and you scored, but the better read was to go to the. We're breaking it down play by play, very literally, trying to work on stuff. So that's mostly what it looks like is those just constant repetitions of ironing out our offense, our chemistry on the court, our timing of plays, everything you could think of in that way, and really. Not to get too in the details here, but NBA2K at a high level has really evolved defensively more than anything. It's really awesome considering I've been around to watch it all because season 1, this didn't exist. We're going into season 7. Man, the amount of defensive rotations we'll randomly in the middle of a possession, everyone just run in a circle basically and switch men with the idea that like it's just going to create chaos and they're not going to understand where the openings are. And so we have different names for different things and everybody in the room knows them and processes them in real time. Hey, run reverse here. And we're going to run. Everyone's going to, you don't even know what's going on. And as a player who's never really faced something like that, you look at that and you're just like, your head is just in a mental pretzel. There's no other way to put it. So it's really cool to watch it. Obviously that takes a lot of time and energy and coordination, which is what a lot of the time we spend in practice.
Just to make sure I got this right. So unlike a professional, basketball team in the NBA, not the E-League, but the NBA, they have a bench. In this case here, there's basically 5 players. There is no need for a bench because you're playing in the computer. So when it comes time to practice, that's why you have that need. You don't have people to practice with because you have basically the 5 players plus you and your assistant. Is that the entire group, 7 of you?
Mm-hmm. That's right. It's 7 of us.
Okay. So a year ago, I remember there was an event here where I think it was Charlotte that came down to play. So there was some of the games are actually, you fly to their city or they fly over here, and then people get invited and people can come see you guys, play against each other. I remember here we were streaming it out to Boxy Park, and people were watching it over there, not really knowing that across the street is where the guys were actually playing against each other, right? Is that an ongoing thing or a one-off type of thing during a season?
our goal is if we could host 10 local games here, we would host every game here locally if we could. It is a goal of ours with the Magic and Magic Gaming that we can host as many games locally and be as ingrained in the community as possible. So last year, we did host a game versus Charlotte. This year, we're actually hosting 2 games locally, one of which is against Miami on March 23rd. That will be at the Kia Center an hour before we play. The actual Magic plays the Kings. So stay tuned. Social channels. We're going to obviously I'll shout those out at some point, but we will have, a way for fans to understand when we're going to play, how to watch, those kinds of things. And then again, down in Lake Nona on June 1st, we're going to host the Atlanta Hawks for a 5v5 game. Hawks Talon GC is their name. And that's on June 1st, I believe at 2 p.m. And it will be a public event at Lake Nona, where we'll open up the garage and stream it to Boxy Park and do all those things like you just mentioned again. Like I mentioned, and we're actually going to Charlotte for a local game this year too. They came here last year, so we get to go there in March as well, which we're really looking forward to. But we would host as many of these things as we can locally. We really value the fact that we've built a community here in Lake Nona of some hardcore supporters, which is awesome. Be able to play with a crowd chanting defense behind us and just a group of fans that are, Magic fans that are coming after the game. It's an awesome experience for the guys, for myself, for everybody involved. So, we were just thrilled with the, attendance considering it was a holiday weekend last year. And just the overall, experience that we had last year. So hoping to replicate that, maybe even, improve on it this year.
We will certainly improve on it. I am personally committed to making it a big crowd and get you a big crowd over here and have a lot of fun. Let me ask you, with respect to where you guys want to go with the league, right? I mean, you've been doing this for 7 years. It has been on a path of growth. What do you see happening, say, in the next 5 years?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I think where I'm going to start with this is say that over the last year, the NBA and the NBPA, the Players Association, have come to an agreement where essentially 2K League teams like Magic Gaming are able to really market their team and what they're doing through the NBA athletes on specific deals with the NBA athletes, which is brand new to our league. In the past, we basically went the other direction. We're like, hey, we're not going to involve ourselves with the NBA at all. And I think huge miss from a marketing standpoint. I want to say across the NBA, there's over 750 million Instagram followers. Okay. We need those fans to be understanding of what the NBA 2K League is and whatever crossover there is, to help grow the NBA. There's a lot of the NBA's demographic is a lot of young folks, to be honest. They do a better job than I think Major League Baseball and the NFL in getting young fans. But there's still a missing gap of folks that play even NBA 2K. They don't even really follow the NBA, believe it or not. It's actually kind of unbelievable when you look at the numbers, deep dive into them. So obviously growing that is where I would start, as well as, you look at the way content has changed over the last 18 months, 24 months, with significantly more short form content becoming increasing in popularity. And so I would say you're going to see a lot more content approaches towards esports, and especially NBA 2K, that are more short form, because the idea of the esports environment is you load up Twitch and you sit and watch a 3-hour broadcast. It's not the most digestible form of content compared to the TikTok, Instagram reel, YouTube short type of content. So you're going to see a lot of that more frequently pumped out at a much higher level, as well as more NBA player involvement. And you may see more changes to the format of our league at the NBA 2K League level. I would, my guess is at some point we may even have some crossover type tournaments where we're using our NBA teams as opposed to, we have our point guard. His name's Unguardable. He has his own character with a blue afro, right? Instead of that, he may be loading up as Jalen Suggs or Paolo Banchero. And that's going to be who we're playing against that day. So I would be surprised if that's the direction we don't head. But man, I think, our goal, my goal always with the Magic is, hey, I don't want to just be a market. We don't want a Magic game to just be like a marketing wing for gaming. I don't think that's what we want. We want to provide value further than just like engaging with the fans that already exist. We want to bring, a strategic advantage to the organization that we can't bring. I think a great example, just to give, I'm sorry, I'm lamenting here, but is the NBA fan in Brazil. Brazil is an intense esports market. They also just are an intense sports market, man. They love the NBA. And who they really love is the Orlando Magic. That in Orlando Magic, for whatever reason, probably just because tourism, and the Cleveland Cavaliers are the two most popular teams in Brazil. And that would be the Cavs because of Anderson Varejão and his time with the Cavaliers. He was the most popular Brazilian at the time. And so we have hosted a couple tournaments, NBA2K tournaments in Brazil, and they've done great as far as just like engagement and it's like, man, like we're trying to convert Brazilian sports fans and esports fans into Magic fans. And I think that's something we're working on and trying to be successful in. And so I think more strategic initiatives like that can really grow the NBA fan base as opposed to just borrowing over folks that already understand and are already fans of the NBA, if that makes sense.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And I really hope that becomes a reality because I'm from a different generation, but I see clearly the value of these types of efforts. Gaming is here to stay. Gaming is bigger than TV and film combined, right? Globally. And if we can have collectively an effort to formalize the way people can make a living doing gaming in a way that is, again, healthy. I'm very big on the health. You see that from my podcast. It's about taking care of yourself, taking care of your body, your mind, and your soul, right? And if we can create that approach where the players, the e-players, the digital athletes, as I like to call them, are not only making a good living or an excellent living or an extraordinary living, taking care of themselves and showing the kids out there, right? It's like you can do this and you can do it right and you can do it in a healthy way. I'm all in. Let's just, get everybody involved, as many people as possible, right? I mean, they're already playing anyway. It's just a matter of finding, other vehicles to formalize it as a career, which I think that's where you're trying to go, right? And making it into a career that is open to many more, and not only here in the United States, but globally.
Yeah, I could not agree more. I think, again, the narratives of what gamers are and look like, the fact that, obviously most people, they sit in chairs too long every day. Like we just, things have to change in our life. And, I did listen to one of your podcasts prior to jumping on here about resilience and about, I think it was funny. You guys were talking about, how nowadays, man, it's like people they got a universal remote. They never have to get up. They don't have to do anything. And it's like everyone wants to take the easy way out, man. If you ever want to be in the top of your industry or field, you're not going to find people that don't take health seriously in any of the top, in any industry in the world. And so this is no different. It takes commitment, dedication, discipline, all those things to be great. In all aspects of life, you can't just be, eating, doing whatever, and then expect to perform really well. It's just not how life works. And so, man, it's a constant battle I also fight, trying to teach 20-year-olds who don't even know how to work the oven or the air fryer, like, hey, this is how we eat right without just ordering DoorDash every day. This is how we do it. So believe me, I understand that it's a constant uphill battle, one I fight often, but I found myself winning more often than not over the last couple of years, which is awesome to see, man. And I think that this generation is a lot more open-minded to this than I think maybe in generations past, to be honest.
So you're in your late 20s, right? You said you were 28, you said?
Yeah, I turned 29 tomorrow, actually.
29 tomorrow. Happy birthday early. But I looked you up, and you have a very interesting nickname for a 28-year-old. That's, what is it, Daddy Jonah?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I shouldn't. I don't know. I don't know how much I claim that anymore, because to be completely honest, I think that's been my gamer tag since I was 13. And back then it was like, like GoDaddy.com. It was like, who's your daddy in the ad, and I just thought it was funny, and so it was my gamer tag since then. And then people knew me from being competitive in NBA2K that it stuck, man. So. Yeah. I'm not a father though. I do not have children.
Okay.
Not yet, at least. And so it's not a literal term, and it's not the unfortunate, overly sexualized term it is now. It was really more of a endearing, I'm just better than you in gaming type of thing when I came.
Awesome. No, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, I knew this was going to happen. We're out of time, Jonah. If you can take the last couple of minutes and just leave the audience with something, maybe 3 thoughts, about e-gaming, about the Magic Gaming specifically. I definitely want to work with you on getting the word out more. So what would you like to leave the audience with?
Yeah, I think one of which would just kind of summarize a lot of what our conversation was, which is, just understanding the value of all aspects of your life resulting in kind of performance, and how important it is to understand that you can't cut corners and expect results in life. And so I think that it translates really, really well here to what we do at a high level. And so that would be one for sure. The next one is I would say, and I guess I'm supposed to have 3, but I kind of realized I may have 4. But I would say, first of all, if you're an aspiring esports athlete, player, coach, whatever it may be, I give this advice often, but to folks that are, but take yourself seriously from day one. Be intentional about what you're doing and the way you present yourself. I think the most valuable thing I did when I was a kid was, I cared so much about school, but I was really because I just wanted to get it done so I could play games. It was like in high school, I got my homework done so I could play games, and I did it well that way. I didn't have to go back to it. And I think that's such an understated yet valuable understanding that people, and especially kids, this is a constant battle that adults, parents fight with their children of get off the game. You need to do this. Priorities matter in life. Take them seriously, and you can have fun when you're not doing what you love. And may not always be fun. It may be work, but do what you love if not. So I would say that. And then the third one would be follow Magic Gaming on Twitter, Instagram, all our social channels. Stay tuned to watch our season. I think from my perspective, there's no question this is the most talented team Magic Gaming has ever had. It's the most excited I've ever been going into a season with the group we have. I think we are, for the first time, the number 1 in the power ranking, go into a lot of the 2K League analysts going into the season. We've never been this successful group, to be honest with you. Over the years, we've been really middle of the pack. So I'm really looking forward to this season. So stay tuned. Hopefully we're able to bring some money back into our guys' pockets, and some championships, some banners, some trophies back home to the Orlando Magic organization.
That is fantastic, Jonah. Thank you very much. I appreciate what you're doing. I do appreciate the level of, like you said, intentionality and professionalism that you're bringing to this. I did talk to some people around because we just recently met, but I did talk to some folks over here in the office. I did look you up. I understand you take this very seriously. You wear a suit for the games as a coach, which I think is fantastic. I think this is great. I am so happy you made the time for me, and let's work together on this. Let's make sure that we get a big crowd for the guys over here. Welcome to Lake Nona. And again, thank you for making the time.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much.